This is gonna be tough for me because I don't have my glasses, but we're gonna try and get through it. Welcome back to Talking Story. My name is John Mitten, and I have a full book review for you. Today, I have finished reading The First Law, Book 1 in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. This came so highly recommended by so many booktubers, I can't even name them all, and I could not wait to dive into it, and now I have, and I can't wait to share my thoughts with you. But first, my reviews work on a basic 5-star system. There's 5 categories: world building, plot, characters, pace, and prose. In each category, you can get a full star down to a quarter star, and at the end of it, we kind of do a little bit of math, add everything up, and that's kind of what I felt about the book. So, let's get into it. Let's dive right in with world building. Just overall, this book was such an amazing breath of fresh air for me. I've been reading a lot of Brandon Sanderson. Again, I love Brandon Sanderson, but it always has that big Sanderlench at the end, and it's epic in scope, right? Epic fantasy. It has that adjective tacked onto it for a reason. This was like an intimate theater piece. Everything was in concert with or revolved around character. And I just think you'll see that theme again and again and again as we go through this review. Let's start out with world building. Joe Abercrombie does such an amazing thing. For me, even more so than Tolkien, there is a literary fantasy reality that lives in our collective subconscious, and that is T.H. White's The Sword and the Stone, the Arthurian legend. It kind of, even if you don't read fantasy, if you haven't read a lot of fantasy in your life, you kind of know the Sword and the Stone, the one king that brought all of Britain together, the wise wizard as a mentor figure, the round table. Like, these things are just ingrained in us. What I thought Joe Abercrombie did so amazingly in this book, and guys, this book is, usually when you think about book 1 of an epic fantasy, it's a way more of a chonker than this. And it's because Joe Abercrombie was able to use a shorthand by tapping into this collective subconscious. There is lore. There is a one king that brought the union together, as it's called in this book. There is wizards going back, and there's a wizard that was a mentor figure to this king that's kind of coming back around. There's a closed council. Kind of think about a round table. There's so many things that you can grab onto without him taking the time for an info dump or exposition. You automatically have a feeling for the world because it just touches little nigglings that whether you realize it or not, in the back of your mind. Now, as he goes on, of course, there's history and lore, and a lot of this story is dealing with some of that history and lore coming back around. But he doesn't have to take the time to spoon feed you exposition to build the world. He can do something as simple as having the characters sit by a statue, and there's a little bit of understanding of what that statue is from, or be in a room with a mural. A lot of it has to deal with art from the past, architecture from the past, where that character is. Again, always in concert with the character. What is the character around or dealing with? That's what you're going to get world building from. Mr. Abercrombie doesn't go into I'm going to talk about these tapestries that were built by this empire, by these people that wove it from this part of the sea. And he's never going to do that. Everything stays very attached to wherever that character is. Most of this takes place in the city of Adjoa. Wherever they are in that city, next to whatever piece of art or architecture, that is going to be what taps into the past and the lore of this world and how it spreads out from there. Again, everything revolves and works in concert with character. And it absolutely works, guys. It stays intimate and yet still has a feeling of grandeur. So world building, I absolutely have to go with a full star. Let's go right into plot. Now, a lot of times what you're going to hear about this book is, oh, it's so character driven. I don't really feel like it has a lot of a plot. And I heard that over and over again in different recommendations. It's like, you got to read it though. I didn't have that problem at all. I kind of feel like there's that old argument, right, with Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. Is it one big book or is it a trilogy? It's the same thing here. I started feeling like, and I watched some interviews with Joe Abercrombie, him saying it's like, this is my take on a grand trilogy, and I kind of feel like it's like Lord of the Rings in that way. It is one big story. So if you start to look at it in that way, book one is your character introduction. You're drawing together of these disparate characters, these strands, you're drawing them together to go on some type of grand quest. Like, there's absolutely plenty of plot here for me. There's war coming to the Union from not one front, but two. There's lore that needs this first magi, this wizard, to start pulling these threads together of these disparate characters and getting them all into one central place to save reality. There's plenty of plot going on here. I did not think that there was kind of a hole where plot was. Again, it's always forward through characterization. Each little individual disparate thread is pulled together and forward into this, basically this one city of Adua, and it's pulled together in character building ways. The points of view of Logan, the Bloody Nine, his characterization pulls him into, same thing with Jezal getting ready for a contest of swords. All of these things, disparate as they may be, Glokta, an inquisitor that is looking into the different mysteries being used even by his superiors to look into different mysteries, it all pulls together for one big plot of just getting these characters in one place. So is there plenty of plot for me? Absolutely. I hear myself describing it, and it does kind of sound thin when I'm describing it. But when you're reading it, I'm telling you, the pages just absolutely fly by. The mysteries of what happened in the past that are coming back around, war coming to the Union, and that overlay of anxiety of what does that mean for our characters. Guys, I have to give plot a full star. I mean, I didn't feel like, I thought the character introduction for this one grand story, being that this is just the first third, there was plenty of plot to draw me in, plenty of plot to draw me forward through the book, and again, all done through characterization. So I'm going to have to give plot a full star. So let's talk about these characters, guys. You kind of have three primary points of view here. You've got Glokta, who is the Inquisitor, who is trying to track down the merchants who are overextending themselves and lying on their taxes and stealing from the kings. And then he starts to realize that he's maybe a bit in over his head and his superiors are using him in this way to enrich themselves. You have Jezal, who is preparing for a fencing bout, and it's a big thing in the city of Adua. There's a contest every year, and if he can be a champion. So here you have kind of an affluent person that has joined the service because that's what's expected, and he's kind of got a leg up already, and he has some feelings about the lower classes that are distasteful. But you're kind of going along with him, preparing to be hopefully the next grand champion. And you have RD, who is one of the people training Giselle's sister, and these are all kind of coming together. And then you have Logan, the Bloody Nine, who the book starts with in the wilderness, has to battle, and he loses track of the rest of his band because he falls off a cliff in this battle, and then he is quickly found by a wizard's apprentice and taken to the first of the Magi, Bayez, and he's obviously sent his apprentice out to find this one particular barbarian type warrior for a reason, and he's taking him to the city of Adua, and we're not quite sure what this reason is. but it's all these disparate threads, and all of these characters are human. And I oftentimes hear that it says, oh, this is such a grimdark book and there's not maybe characters you root for. I did not find that to be the case at all. Logan, the Bloody Nine, is he a bloodthirsty person? Not at all. He has a code and he has morality. And very early in the book, you see him making conscious decisions where that wizard's apprentice that found him is very ill, and he could cast him aside and leave him and keep moving, but no, he carries him on his back because it's the right thing to do, even though it's quite arduous. And over again, he makes a statement of, I wish I could lay my sword down. I want to be done with fighting. I don't want to carry on. I mean, at his core, he just wants to be a peaceful pragmatist, but the hilt of that sword keeps finding his hand. Glocta, such an amazing character, was a hero in the past war and was taken prisoner by the empire that the Union was at war against, and was tortured within an inch of his life, and is now just a hideous shell of the heroic figure he used to strike. He was a past champion of this fencing contest that happens every year, to much pageantry in Adua, and now he's kind of cast aside. He's somewhat ostracized. He can't get out of bed in the morning without soiling himself. He can't walk without a cane. He can't eat anything except gruel because he's missing so many teeth. He is so beaten and so battered and so bruised. And yet, the moment he has when someone from his past finally does come to visit him, and that human moment where this torturer, this inquisitor that makes his living torturing, has a human moment of connection. Absolutely not just great characters. There's a spark of humanity there that you root for. Jazal, again, you would absolutely not be enamored with his character because, as I said, he's somewhat of an aristocrat and looks down his nose at so many of these other classes that he shares the city with. But then he starts to have his head turned and fall in love by a woman of no means at all, Major West's sister, R.D., who is another main character in this. And as he goes through this journey of falling further and further for this woman and knowing it's not what he should do for his advancement whatsoever, but can't stop himself. These are all such human moments and beautiful moments that you wish for, even though they are subsumed and buried in moments of brutality, especially in Glotka's and Bloody Nine's case. There are absolutely human moments that you root for. So I found these characters to be so engaging, not just gray in that way that there's no one to root for, but gray in that way that they're just not wearing a black hat or a white hat, but absolutely fully realized and real. Full star for characters. If I could give more than a star, I would absolutely give a full star. So we're at 3 full stars already, guys. You can obviously tell I love this book. So pace. This is where I had just a little bit of a problem for me. Like I said, we have the main points of view that are going in. Then interspersed through this, we have points of view of the band that the Bloody Nine left in the woods as he escaped, the band of named men, and they get their names from violence, which is amazing, and Pharaoh, who is also being brought to Adua. Now, these two threads in our tapestry don't really seem to be necessary or needed to these other 3 main points of view. So when I would come to a chapter dealing with either one of the 2 of them, I felt it slowed down a bit for me. I wanted to get back to one of these other main points of view that I was so invested in, and to see what was happening in this city of Adua that I was so enamored with. So the pace slowed down for me a little bit now in these 2 cases. Now, in the case of Pharaoh, in that way of our band of brothers and sisters being brought together to go on a great quest in the second chapter coming up, she absolutely had to be there because she has to join them. So I'll give that up. I'll give that up to you. She did have to be drawn in by the end of this because you had to have your character in a place, obviously, I think for a very, very important reason that we'll find out in book 2. But now, the band of named men, again, by the end, it's a great payoff for them and such a, like I was saying, these are men of conquest and violence and warriors almost unparalleled, except the Bloody Nine have vanquished all of them. And still in all, at the end, they have such a human moment when one of their own falls. And I don't want to spoil anything more than that. This is quite an old book, guys. So I'm going a little bit further than I normally would, but I won't go further than that. But it's like they're all there when they lose one of their brothers, and they have that one Denzel tear, and your time spent with them pays off in such an enormous way. And they're moving south. They're going to fight with the Union, even though their ties are with the North. But I think this could have been part of book 2. I don't think I really needed it in book 1. So these diversions for them, even though it paid off in a lovely way, slowed the pace down for me just enough for me to take a 1/4 star away. So pace, guys, I'm going to go 3/4 star. So all that leaves is prose. The prose stylings. Now, prose, again, everything is in service to and revolves around the character. These characters are so well. Now, that's not to say that Mr. Abercrombie doesn't take his time and describe things that are around you. He absolutely does. He goes into very meticulous ways to describe the city of Adjoa, but he does that from the point of view to show how a big city would crush the Bloody Nine coming from the woods as he does. He can go on for pages describing a character's chin, but it's the character himself looking in the mirror and he has a streak of vanity. So these things are beautifully described. The prose is lovely, and it, again, all in service to character. And what he absolutely has in spades, guys, is voice. The dialogue is performance ready. You hear these character voices when they speak. It's almost like, as you're reading, it's almost like you're listening to a narration, because the voice is so strong. Each character has their own individual voice and way of speaking, and they're also unbelievably strong. Let me just give you an example. I marked a page here now. This is Glocka actually interrogating someone, and this is going to be tough for me because I don't have my glasses, but we're gonna try and get through it. Okay, I'm back. Got my eyes on. Now, here we go. Again, this is Glocka interrogating, doing his job, and just listen to the dialogue. Listen to the voice that Joe Abercrombie is able to write with. We're just off the middle way, down near the water. You know, the middle way is one of the very arteries of the city. It runs straight through its heart from the Agriant to the sea. It passes through many different districts, has all manner of notable buildings. Some of the most fashionable addresses in the whole city are just up the lane. To me, though, it's nothing but a road between two dentists. Up at the other end of the avenue, in one of the most expensive parts of town, opposite the public gardens and a beautiful white house in the very shadow of the Agriant, is the establishment of Master Farad. You might have heard of him. They say that Master Farad is the finest dentist in the world. I believe he came from Gurkel originally, but he escaped the tyranny of the emperor to join us in the Union and make a better life for himself, saving our wealthiest citizens from the terrors of bad teeth. And when I came back from my own little visit to the South, my family sent me to him to see if there was anything he could do for me. Of course there wasn't. The emperor's torturers saw to that. But he's a damn fine dentist. Everyone says so. Now down at the other end of the middle way, down near the sea, in amongst the filth and the scum and the slime of the docks, am I. The rents may be cheap hereabouts, but I feel confident that once we've spent some time together, you will not think of me any less talented than the esteemed Master Farad. It is simply that my talents lie in a different direction. The good master eases the pain of his patients, while I am a dentist of a different sort. You get such a picture of this man. At once, it describes the world around you, so you don't have to have exposition dumps. You can see this world that they're inhabiting, and at the same time, the menace just drips from him. Imagine he's saying this to somebody that's stripped naked, chained to a chair across from him. It's all voice, guys. The character building is done because you can hear them talk. Now, this is a skill that so few authors possess, and I think I know why he possesses it, and I'm going to talk about that in the spoilery section. But prose, I have to go for Mr. Joe Abercrombie, a full star. So if my math is anywhere near what it should be, and I'm pretty sure it is because I just took 1/4 star off this whole review, we've got the entire review of The Blade itself by Joe Abercrombie, the first book in the First Law trilogy, 4.75 stars. This is absolutely going to be one of my best reads of the year, I'm almost positive, and I immediately ordered the second book in this trilogy. So I can't wait to share my thoughts with you. Now, I'm pretty sure by the end of this trilogy, as I stated, one large story, I do think the scale is going to expand, and I do think we're going to have that epic and epic fantasy by the end. But I was so blown away by the intimate quality of this character piece. It was like buying my ticket and going into a very intimate 99-seat theater, black box theater, and seeing an amazing performance. So 4.75. Thanks so much for stopping by. My name is John Minton. Like, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of The Blade itself if you've read it. If you have not, get out there and get yourself a copy. Like I always say, you don't have to read The Blade itself, but absolutely do read something. And if you have read it, stick around with me for a little bit of spoilery talk on the other side. Okay. This is why I think Joe Abercrombie is so amazing at voice. He is a Shakespeare nerd, guys. I can recognize it in someone because I am myself. It was so thrilling to me to get to this point of the book when the wizard Baez is brought into this grand dinner and they're going to have entertainment and they have a play that shows the fall of these long historical figures from hundreds of years back, and the person Baez is saying he is the first Magi. Well, you're in this presentation we see you're supposed to have when you vanquish these people from yesteryear. You're supposed to have the key to the Maker's Tower. Surely you still have that key. You could open it for us. They're just trying to trip him up with a presentation of a play, and this is such a beautiful hearkening back to Hamlet's play within a play. I was reading this and it just thrilled me to see this conceit used. And I immediately, my lines from all those years ago came back to me. Speak the speech, I pray you, trippingly. on the tongue. For if you mouth it as so many of your players do, I'd lift the town crier spoke my lines, and do not saw your air so much with your arm thus, but use all gently to have the play within the play from Hamlet in this, and then even give at the end of this presentation, give a little bit of a wink, a little bit of a nod to Midsummer Night's Dream with, if we spirits have offended, think but this, and all is mended, you have but slumbered here. He's a Shakespeare nerd. That's why his voice is so amazing. If he hadn't studied theater, he studied Shakespeare. He understands voice. He understands motivation of character and where these characters are coming from and what they're driving for and what they want and the obstacle of the other character across from them. This is why his voice is so amazing. This is why everyone says, oh, his characters are phenomenal. It's because he has voice. And from one Shakespeare nerd to another Mr. Abercrombie, slow clap. I was thrilled to see these moments. Thank you so much for joining me here on Talking Story. As always, my name is John Minton. Come back again, hang out with us, like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon.